Alright, today I got some new pistons. I went out shopping on Craigslist and I got a set of 8 pistons and rods for 50 bucks. One of the pistons is toast, but 7 good pistons and rods is a pretty decent deal, because if you want one 3rd gen piston with no rings and anything else from GM, it's $73. So this isn't too bad. Let me show you what I got. There it is in all its glory. This dude said that the motor had 230 or 270, I don't remember what he said, but it obviously had a lot more, because it had what he said, but it had a lot more mileage than my motor, because the bearings look a bit more wasted. He said it was still running, but that's kind of funny too. This is that cross pattern that you get on the real early LS truck motors. He said it was still running, but it was smoking real bad. Let me find the piston and I'll show you. So here it is. This piston apparently was letting it smoke. And he hadn't pulled the pistons out, so I can see why he didn't know this had all happened. He just said the top ring land is screwed up at least. There's a lot of piston ring missing. I think it was run and driven like this for a while, and it kind of just blew hot gases through there until it just melted away aluminum and piston ring and everything else. So this one's toast, and this one here ought to be toast too, because oh no, that's not the one. One of these 9 is the one that I dropped. A while back I got this parts cleaner from Craigslist for $40 or $50, I don't remember. The pump for it came in this kitty litter container with ants and flies and antifreeze, it looks like, inside. So I moved the thing over next to an outlet, got her plugged in over there, put the pump on, and it actually makes some noise and lights up. So there's no fluid in it. I got about 6 gallons of mineral spirits. I'm gonna put that in and see what happens. I put in 5 gallons and nothing happened. I put in 6 gallons and it's sucking air, but it pumps. Let me show you. Good enough. Here's the 2 pistons. This is the one that I wrecked. Look at that nice, clean, shiny bearing. It's got 110,000 miles, I was told. This piston has a bit more pitting and ugliness to the bearing. It was well over 200,000 miles. It's got that early cross pattern on the piston crown, whereas my piston did not have that. But they're both dished. They're both, as far as I can tell, the same length, so I think they're both 5.3. I'm going to roll with it. I'll just put my better bearing into this piston, clean it up, get the rings out of here, clean them, check the gaps, and see if we can shove it back in the motor. Another interesting fact on this real early piston, the bolts are threaded way up close to the top, and they come right out of the cap. And on my motor, the original bolts don't easily come out of the cap. They just kind of go that far and they're captured, and there's really no thread on any of the exposed part you can see there. I mean, there's thread here, but not there. So later 99 versus earlier 99. I don't know if that's a common thing, or, you know, I'm just taking stuff apart and figuring it out. Anyway, I'm going to get these bearings out, see if they fit. So it didn't clean up that great. This is the piston from the new engine. The piston rings were so full of crud, even the oil ring, I had to take it apart and clean it up. So I'll assemble this and then we'll check ring gap. So I don't know if they just used different ring packs on the older pistons, but this one was tighter even though the motor had a lot more mileage. Checking the gap on the bottom ring, we had 28 thousandths and the top ring was 25 thousandths versus the pistons that came in my motor with less mileage had a wider gap, like 35 to 40 on the bottom and at least 30 on the top. So I'm going to file these and make them match my motor just so that everything's nice and loose for when I add the timing to it. But not tonight, I'll get to it later. Oh crap. Glad I came back out here today. Looks like the drain isn't sealing, or maybe not tight. I gotta put something underneath that and tighten it up. Be right back. Maybe that's why this was for sale. I poured 6 in, so this isn't gonna last long. Oh, maybe it'll take a long time to fill up at that rate. Ought to get me through the night at least. Alright. The other thing that seems to have gone wrong from this is flash rust. So it was some WD. Did you catch any of that? I think I was pointing up in the sky. Alright, with that crisis averted, I can turn my attention to trying to loosen up the gaps on these guys again. To review, the piston rings for the new pistons, when I put them down in the motor here, were tighter than what originally came with my motor. I should have never taken my motor apart. But on the other hand, it could have had a set of pistons like this where they're all too tight. So how do you know until you take it apart? Too bad. So I'll try to get on the sander and get these rings opened up a bit, and we'll go from there. Alright, so the number 4 cylinder now with the new piston and one old ring at the top gives me 32 thousandths. And the original bottom ring I filed up to a little over 35 thousandths. So that should be right in line with what everybody else was. Let's put it together. I don't know if this is the right thing to do, but I like doing the top ring first and then getting the bottom ring to just slide over top of it. There's one. And the bottom ring. Easy enough. Then my oil ring gaps are over here. So I'll keep my bottom over here on the opposite side and just spin the top around by the dot. So oil ring gaps and top gap, middle gap. Let's come off. friggin' thing went down in the cylinder on one side. I don't know, for whatever reason, I just gave it 2 taps this time and it went right in. The other day I thought these were threaded all the way up, but they're kind of half threaded after a certain spot. 52 foot-pounds again. Perfect. I didn't get a ton done, but I got in the garage and I did something. So maybe I can clean some things up again and get that oil pan on here. And if I keep coming out every couple of days, maybe we'll have a motor in no time. So besides the oil pan, I remembered I've got some broken exhaust bolts. I think every junkyard LS motor does. There's one snapped off in there, and I'm sure there was like 2 or 3 more on this one. I grabbed some some grade 5 washers and some nuts. So I'll try to just weld onto the washers and then weld the nut onto that and twist it off, and if it breaks then we start over and keep going, and eventually it works. I've seen it done on the Derby car and it was pretty slick because you got an aluminum head, you're welding steel so it doesn't stick. So oil pan next, and then fix up the cylinder heads and get them back on the motor, put the intake on, and it'll be buttoned up, and I don't know, make it squirt next.